Hey everyone, Brian Kelly here. Welcome to another episode of the Cultivate Church Planting Podcast. I hope you've been enjoying the show, and I want to tell you about an opportunity to support church planting and church planters. Go to cgn.org, click on donate. You'll see a drop down for church planting. I'm going to put the link in the show notes, but this is a great way to practically support the work of the ministry, support church planting, support church planters. We're going to see that all those funds go right out onto the field. So just wanted to tell you about that opportunity. And now let's get into the episode. All right. Welcome to the Cultivate Church Planting Podcast, where we're going to be talking about church planting. We're here with Pastor Brian Brodersen, who is no longer the senior pastor of Calvary Chapel Costa Mesa.
Pastor Emeritus.
Pastor Emeritus.
I
is
know
that what
you
it's
have
called?
a hard time pronouncing that word, but you got to work on it.
Can you do I need the little dashes and Emeritus.
That's it.
And back with Nick Cady. Thanks again for being here, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and Brian, always a pleasure.
Yeah. I think the last time we did this was actually in a trailer at your church, your old church building, a few years ago.
Yeah, and here in Florida, we meet in trailers, in trailer parks. So we're glad to have graduated.
And the best Airbnbs are also in trailer parks. We discovered that this week.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah, that's what we did. Good to have you, Brian. And so we're expecting words of deep, profound wisdom for you to share with, because our church planters are listening. They need to know what to do, where to go. Yeah.
Well, somebody recently referred to me as the pastor of wisdom. So
No, that was a job offer.
Oh, that was a job offer. Right, okay. That's just the title. I don't know if I fit in there.
Hey, if that pays, you might consider.
No, I told him. So we will get to the episode. We will start talking about church planting, but this is church stuff. Pastor Emeritus. He's visiting our church and preached on Sunday, and it was amazing, and people loved it. And he said, I kind of like Florida. I think, I could.
It's growing on me.
It's growing on me. That's what he said. And I said, well, now that you're retired or whatever you are, and we'll talk about that in a second, but why don't you come and be the pastor of wisdom at the church?
Yeah, I mean, it's tempting. I think about it. Maybe at least for a couple weeks a year. Maybe you can promote it all year. Like in this month, the pastor of wisdom will be here. So everybody that needs wisdom, they can queue up.
Is that came to me? That's not a thing, right?
I haven't heard of it, but why not? It could be a thing.
Why not?
But I want to say this, unrelated to that. I want to say that Nick Cady has impressed us all, because in the few days that we've been in Florida, he took a swim in what was formerly the Gulf of Mexico, but is now
the Gulf of America.
Gulf of America.
That's what we call it here.
He was swimming with dolphins, and somebody said potentially with sharks, but you didn't see any sharks.
No, we
saw the dolphins. We saw a video of it. It's amazing.
It was amazing. It was like a once in a lifetime type thing.
Yeah.
I was out swimming. These dolphins came around me, but then the guy who actually told me to go swim at that place, Pastor Ryan Marr, he was like, "Well, that means that there's probably sharks in there, and you probably shouldn't have been out there." So
yeah, but then, I mean, that was amazing enough. But then this morning, you took a jog or a walk, and you took a selfie, and in the background there was a pretty substantial gator.
Alligator,
right across the pond.
Can we get that on the video? Would you put the pictures and stuff up?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I saw the video of the swimming, and it was like you guys were way out there.
Yeah.
They were out there by the buoys, so they were just swimming. They're like expert
Who took
swimmers.
that video? I mean, that was like...
it was my executive pastor. He's standing on this jetty, videoing us. Yeah.
That's great. We do have sharks here, but they don't bite. They're friendly. But I saw the dolphins. We do have a lot of dolphins here, and it's a wonderful place. So when the pastor of wisdom comes out, maybe you could come out too. And
I'd love that. Yeah.
Well, Brian, you are still. I made a joke about being retired. You are not retired. You are as active as ever in the church world and Calvary Global Network.
Yes.
Even in church planting and in connecting people, I think one of your greatest strengths is relational connector. You just, you know so many people in so many different countries. So maybe what we could do in this episode is talk about some of the opportunities you've seen in your travels and your recent work where you see God is working here. We need church planters. We need people to invest. So maybe we can start there.
Yeah, well, the beginning of the year, I was in Europe, and we were, as we do, we get together the first of the year with a conference for pastors from around Europe. And we had about 75 guys at this particular conference, probably more than half of them, senior pastor guys who, church planters, and both national guys from the various countries, as well as some mission pastors, but guys who have been on the field for a long time, so some of them have dual citizenship and all that. But anyway, in all of those places that the guys came from, everybody's talking about, and Europe, and of course, Nick, you know this firsthand because you lived there. We had a season, a really prolific season of church planting in Europe. And it seems like it's kind of waned over the past, 10, 15 years, just not the same excitement or level of activity that we had in the past. So I think everybody is sort of feeling like we got to get back to that. We need to rekindle that. So there wasn't anything specific like, hey, we're going to go here and do this or that. But there was the sense from everybody that it's time to reboot that. So I went from there down to Central America and South America, and it's a different story down there because, man, things are hopping and these guys. So
you were in Peru, right?
Yeah, but before that I was in San Salvador, and the La Capilla church there, the Calvary in San Salvador. These guys are great. I mean, they've got 11 church plants, or seven church plants, and they've got 11. They call them missions. So like they're not quite at that place where they feel like the person is ready to fully be the pastor, but they're on the path to that. So there's 11 of those that are active right now. And these other 7 churches they planted, I mean, there's 300 people, 500 people. It's amazing what's happening in El Salvador. So that was super exciting. And they're just fired up. I spoke to, they have a seminary. I spoke to 70 students, and the pastor told me, like, most of these people in here are basically prepping for church planting. That's why they're in the school. So I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then they have a discipleship school. They had about 15 younger people in the discipleship school. And a lot of the pastors that I had met down there came out of that discipleship school. So it's like, they're doing a great job. And then, of course, yes, down to Lima, guys from Peru, guys from Colombia, guys from Brazil, and a lot of buzz about more churches. Let's get more churches planted. Let's get more people raised up. And a lot of excitement. The congregations are generally 30s, kind of 20s, early 30s, a few older people, of course. But you just see the potential for more and more gospel ministry. We have the Bible College in Cajamarca, in Peru, and the leadership of the Lima Church, Manolo Matos specifically, is now taking the oversight of the Bible College, and they're super excited about training students there. So anyway, I wrote this in the recent newsletter that we put out through CGN. Every time I go down into that part of the world, whether it's Mexico, Central America, South America, I just get the sense like, man, this place is ripe. It's ready. Like when we went into Europe, Nick, way back when, it was ripe. It was the time. And Brian, of course, you were 10 years in Africa, and you experienced all of that stuff too. And you guys just went and did something in Africa again, right?
The Expositors Collective, and we reconnected with a lot of the church plants, and it's same thing. There's really something happening, I think.
Yeah,
like you said.
And we believe that. I believe this, and I think you guys do too. Jesus, the Great Commission, essentially seemed to be like, go plant churches, because that's what they did. So they took the words of Jesus, and it translated into starting in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, uttermost parts of the earth. And then, of course, you got the beautiful picture of what was happening at Antioch, and Antioch sends out
sending
Paul
hub.
Barnabas, and they do all of that. So I think we're just following that model, and I think again, I think let's reboot it. Let's get it. Let's fire it up again.
I like that. Reboot church planting. Let's fire it up the old engines again. Let's go.
That's right.
Nick, what about Eastern Europe? You were over there. How long were you there?
I was there for 6 weeks. I was in Hungary, Serbia. I was in a few other Western countries, and I was in Ukraine too on sabbatical. So that's how I spent my sabbatical.
Good place to spend,
I went to a war zone.
But before that, you lived over. You lived over there.
So I lived in Hungary for 10 years, and we planted 2 churches. They're kind of like I talked about this in a previous episode about how it was really one church, and then we had another. I don't know if it was a campus. It was like its own church, but we had the same central leadership and pastored them together. And so, and talking with those guys over there recently, it's that same thing you're saying about the Western European guys, where there's this feeling of, we were planting so many churches in the past. Have we gotten away from the core of who we are and who we were? And we're, and so I get that feeling everywhere I go. That there's this desire for seeing new churches planted once again in these regions where it was prolific at one time.
Yeah.
How's that gonna? I mean, we've got Cultivate, and one thing I was gonna say when you were talking about South America and even Mexico, there's a lot of activity happening there, and so we're working on within Cultivate not a separate, but a unique expression of the Cultivate program in the Latin America countries. So Manolo, who you mentioned, is working with us. He's part of our leadership team, creating a separate website, not just a translated website, but a separate website, identifying the Spanish-speaking coaches that we have, because that's a big part of the Cultivate program is the coach support that you have. And to put them on that website, unique with the countries and everything. So we're really, being intentional about, hey, this is happening, let's do this, and how are we going to best serve those church planters? And
then you got Quique Torres in Mexico. You got Mike Vincent in Mexico. Those guys are doing an amazing job. Church planting. It's phenomenal what they're doing, and it's super exciting what they're doing. So, and we're all on the same team. We're all doing this together. So I think it's not, we're not trying to compete with anybody. It's just like, let whatever exists that's healthy, let's come alongside and do anything we can. And then where there isn't those opportunities, let's step into those places. But I just feel like the whole world, my focus throughout most of my life in ministry has been Europe. That's just where God called me to. And I still have those deep connections with Europe, and specifically the UK. And yet I want to do as much as I can, and that southern hemisphere, the Americas really seems like it's funny because I never wanted to go there. And I remember thinking years ago, it's like, I don't know why, I just never wanted to go. And when I came back from England and I had a few opportunities to go, and I kind of almost kicked my feet, I never wanted to go down here. And then I get down there and I'm like, what in the world was I thinking? Why was I thinking I didn't want to go here, And I think my first foray into South America was actually into Brazil. And, so going to Brazil and seeing what God was doing there, some good friends had gone and planted churches there, and just like, wow, this is an amazing world in and of itself. And, so we were just in Lima with our friend Kaka from Curitiba, and he's all excited. He's been part of the Calvary ministry down there for as long as we've been there.
Yeah.
So but excited about the prospects for the future, because we had the same thing down there. We had a bunch of church plant things going on. Then it just sort of died down, and then you had divisions and you had problems that do arise. Obviously, we're fighting the devil wherever we go, and
he's our enemy.
Yeah, and he's not he's not taking this lying down. He's resisting. Yeah. But anyway, I feel like at this stage, like I was saying, Europe, UK, all of that, I'm firmly cemented into that. But I want to give more time to that whole Spanish-speaking world. Because
that's Spanish-speaking. That's my thing, because my wife Lynn's parents moved down to Tulum, Mexico. They retired there.
Right.
A great little community, and doing mission work in Mexico. We've done that. I want to go down to Peru and all that. But the language barrier. I mean, can we as English speakers be effective learning the language? So what's your plan on that, Brian?
Well, this is hard.
Because, that's the problem.
My wife has always had a little bit of Spanish. That she took Spanish in college, and she actually was a student teacher in a Spanish-speaking school, and it's all of that. But I have just never been able to get the hang of the language thing. And I'm a little bit older now than when I first started trying. And man, if I was having a problem then, I think, I can't even. How am I going to remember any of this stuff? Now Nick's got an advantage because he's fluent in Hungarian.
Yeah, he's
got the language brain, I think. But I don't know that I do.
You have the language brain?
That's what they say. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I mean,
how do you get that?
I'll tell you what, you're born with it. And
really?
If you're not born with it.
See, I can't learn. So I grew up in New Mexico. I was born in California, grew up in New Mexico. My best friend all through junior high, high school, elementary school, his dad spoke only Spanish, and it was I took Spanish in school, and then even in Bible college, I remember I took a Spanish class, and still
I think you can
know
do it, though.
Just a few words.
I actually had this thought. What if, because I have some freedom now, what if I went and immersed myself in a 3-month program? Because I know you can do it.
That's my advice.
And you just go,
goodness.
Costa Rica, I heard they have
do.
those schools.
Yeah.
You go.
You live down there?
You live there for 3 months, and you just speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And then by the time,
do they give you a break, or do they just only speak Spanish to you? So you have to learn
I don't know for sure, but I think it's pretty much that they.
I think it's an immersion program. I think that's the idea.
Yeah. An old friend of ours, Brian did that. He moved down there because he was pastoring in San Diego, right near the border, and he wanted to get the Spanish thing down. So I've been talking to Phil Metzger, and Phil, he's pastoring that church in San Diego now. So he's we all got to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
And so Duolingo, here we come.
Are you going to do it?
I'm going to try.
I was saying, I think we talked about this, about making a pact together to say we're going to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
By this date.
Well, we talked about it, next year, because I said to you need to come down to the Lima conference next year, which is about a year from now. So we got a year to work on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. How?
Now, how's your Spanish, Nick?
It's okay. I can get by in Spanish. Yeah.
Your wife is Peruvian.
What's your second
How's her
language?
Spanish?
My second language is Hungarian.
Okay.
I speak a few European languages, and I can get around in Spanish. But I bet if I spent maybe even a month down there, I bet I could.
You could do it.
I could get it. Maybe not to preach in it, but to get it.
I almost feel like, though, for me, the immersion thing is the only thing that's going to do it. I just can't imagine.
Personally, I think that's actually true for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's really the only key. Yeah. You got to be immersed in it.
And I'm never going to preach in it. I don't aspire to preach in it. I just like to be able to talk to people.
Yeah.
When you're standing there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I had a few experiences last time I was down in Peru. I mean, I go to Starbucks and I kind of just thought that at
you already
Starbucks
speak some grande.
I thought they would have.
Drinks a grande.
I thought the baristas would have actually spoke in English. And then I start talking to them, and they're just, everything is Spanish. I'm like, wait, no, you gotta help me out here. You know? So I ended up just sign language, pointing to the flat
thing.
white.
Yeah, you got Google Translate, but it doesn't work all the time.
Yeah.
You know, because
I would sit in the sessions and turn on my Google Translate, and then I just, read my screen. But it's really broken up. You know, you don't get the flow.
And preaching in the language is like next level. Did you preach in Hungarian?
Yeah. I still preach in Hungarian when I go back.
Whoa, man.
Yeah, this guy's like, he's the language
We need to learn from him.
Because people in Hungary didn't even think they thought like it was his first language.
He looks Hungarian kind of though.
Yeah, I could pull it off. That's why I liked living over there.
You could blend in. Yeah. Oh man, no, preaching, because here's a funny story. I was smiling earlier when you were talking about preaching in a different language, because my friend Sean Stone, they lived in France for a while, and they...
I think I know where you're going with this story.
And you're hoping I don't. He learned French. He's pretty good.
Yeah.
So they asked him to preach a Christmas message.
All right.
Brian's like, no.
Don't go there.
No. Anyway, long story short, just because I can't, I can always edit this out later. He was preaching, and he ended up, for the Virgin Mary, he ended up substituting a different phrase that meant...
Oh, no.
something else.
Yeah.
It had Mary in it, and another word that started with V. So.
Oh no.
And everybody in the church was like, "Oh!" Some of them were laughing, some of them were crying. He said it was the worst thing that's ever happened. So I'll never do that.
I've got like a lot of stories
like that.
Not that bad. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
That's some stories. Yeah.
They were doing the sign of the cross and everything.
Yeah. I'll tell you guys off camera.
Oh, the people want to know, Nick.
All right, I'll tell you. You want one?
Just a
clean,
a mild one. Yeah, throw us a mild one.
All right, really mild one. My wife used to always mix up the word carpet and mosquito.
Okay.
Because the word for carpet is... even possible? Yeah, the word for carpet is sunyag, and the word for mosquito is sunyog. They're really similar,
That's
right?
the same thing.
Yeah. And so she would always tell people, she'd be like... the mosquitoes are biting, but she would tell them the carpets are biting me. And so, yeah, there's a nice one.
See, that's why I don't learn another language, because of that. But when you think about English, though, I mean, big props to all these other countries of learning English, because English is a weird language, too. I mean, so many different words.
It is so weird.
Yeah.
It's completely weird.
Yeah, we went
and you lived in New Zealand, and they speak a totally different form of English.
It's funny, because I think this is good for those who are thinking about moving to a different culture, in New Zealand, it was like, I looked the same, I kind of dressed the same, but as soon as I would start talking, instantly there was a difference. So it was like this weird kind of, like a distortion in the culture that kind of separated me out, and it was frustrating, actually.
Yeah.
Because people would they'd immediately change like kind of their persona toward you or whatever.
Yeah. It all depended on, especially if you were wearing that red hat.
Which one? The one that starts with an M?
That's the one. That's the one I was thinking of.
Well, I went to Uganda. We lived in Uganda for 10 years. And it's funny because we tried to learn there's so many different tribal languages. The country's main language is English. That's what they teach in schools and everything. Mm-hmm. But everybody's first language is their tribe language. The largest tribe, the Buganda tribe, we tried to learn that language. Mm-hmm. And everybody would just keep talking to us in English. We'd try to say a phrase and they'd laugh, and then they'd start talking to us in English. They appreciated that I was trying to learn it, but it was just, I couldn't immerse myself. So
how about Lynn? Does she have a language thing?
She's not, no. She's like me. Mm-hmm. We're both deficient in that area.
Yeah.
But yeah. What was I saying about, there was something in Uganda that I can't remember what it was. Anyway.
Well, just for those
it was about the it's not even important. I just remembered. It's about the MAGA thing that you were talking about.
Yeah.
With the red hat. I went over to revisit for the first time after it was. I think it was the first term after there was a comment about Uganda being a.
Oh right.
Yeah. Yeah. A hole, and they really did not like that.
They didn't like that.
Surprisingly.
Yeah. Why? Why didn't they like that?
Say, Pastor, why did your president say this about us?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to jump in and say, for those who maybe would think that that's a barrier, which of course there is a barrier, and it will affect your experience. But I'll just tell you, one of the most effective church planters I knew in Hungary, he was an American guy, and this guy lived in Hungary for like 15 years. Mm-hmm. One day I was riding him in a car with him, and he looks at a billboard. And I mean, I knew that he couldn't speak Hungarian, but I didn't realize how much he couldn't speak Hungarian. So he looks at this billboard and he goes, "What does that mean?" And it literally says Budapesten, which means
I don't even know what that means.
In Budapest. And I'm like, you live in Budapest. And it wasn't Greg. Greg actually did speak Hungarian, but I'm just another guy. And you know what? He planted a church. The church is thriving to this day.
Wow.
And the Lord used him.
Doesn't have to limit you.
And I just tell you, it doesn't have to limit you. And I knew plenty of people who never learned language and just they wanted to.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, we don't want to make too big of a deal of that. And I get by just fine, when I'm in those places. But you do feel it. You just feel like, doggone it, I wish I could.
I know.
I mean,
that's
for
how
me,
I felt in
even
Mexico
I don't have any aspiration to preach in the language, but I think it just
I want to order a latte.
Yeah, just to have some conversational stuff would be great. And but like somebody I was traveling with this last time, they're like, "Yeah, I'm picking up this and I'm picking up that." I'm thinking, I'm not picking up a single word. I have no idea what. And I would think I would pick up some words. I'm like, "Oh, what is? I wonder what that means."
Oh man. Yeah. Okay, Brian, let's do your top right now, and as far as the way you're feeling about different countries and different exciting activities. Right. You can include Florida in this too.
It's a country, here. I found out.
Yeah. What are your top 5 places when we're talking about church planting that you see this is the spot?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I think Peru it's wide open. There's like 12 million people in Lima.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Peru is, Lima's the largest city, and then there's a few, they're not nearly that big, but they're pretty substantial cities. And then it's rural. Mm-hmm. So, it's kind of a whole other thing. But I think Brazil still. I think Brazil is an amazing.
So are you putting Peru at number 1?
Well, just because I feel like we have such good connections
and good
roots
foundation there.
Good foundation, yeah. And I think, a good foundation is if you've got a foundation to start with, that's great, because laying the foundation itself takes so much time. Yeah. But Mexico too. I think Mexico is amazing, and there's so many good things happening in Mexico.
Yeah, I agree. So you're going Peru number 1. Mm-hmm. Are you doing Mexico too or Brazil too?
I would say maybe Mexico 2 and Brazil 3.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then of course I always have to swing back to Europe, So I feel I'm going to Hungary. Are you going with me? Are we going together?
Okay, going together.
Yeah. Okay, good. So we're going to Hungary in May, the first weekend of May, and we're going to do, like Nick said, he lived there. I was the person who kind of spearheaded the Calvary thing into Hungary years before Nick came. And so I've had a 30 plus year history with those guys, and then over the years, like we said, things have sort of just kind of, not died, but just the excitement, the fervor, the vision, the passion to plant churches has waned for sure. Mm-hmm. So, but they're saying we need to get that back. So you guys come over and help us. So that's what we're going to do, basically, right?
Hungary 4?
So Hungary, and then of course England would be
okay. That's always got to be on your list.
Yeah, and
do you feel like it's more open there to church planting than it has been in the past, or you just have a heart for it?
No, I think England is open to church planting. We've talked many times about the festival we do there, Creation Fest. Several thousand people come to that festival. Many of them would say they don't really have a good church. They're frustrated that they can't find a good church. And they always ask me the same thing. Could we have like a Creation Fest church? Mm-hmm. Could you kind of come and start one that reminds us of Creation Fest? So I feel like the doors are open. But I do think, in the early days, and here we are, we're all Americans talking about having lived in foreign countries and planted churches. In the early days, that's how we did it. We started there. But I think in all of the countries you've mentioned, there's so many indigenous people.
Yeah, and that's incredible. That's the key to it.
That God's working with, that I'm not really looking to go plant an American in any of these places. I want to come alongside of the nationals and say, how can we help you guys do this?
And if you're listening, I mean, even if you're in another country, that's what we're doing with Cultivate.
That's right.
We're coming alongside the national leadership in churches and kind of enabling and empowering.
Yeah. So like in Britain, going back to that, I think that there's plenty of opportunity, but it's more challenging today to move to England as a foreigner than it used to be back in my day.
Okay.
You know, so it's much more expensive, even just for the process, the visas and those kinds of things. And you know, with all the weird politics in the world today, I mean, who knows where all of this stuff is going? So there's people there that can do it.
Yeah.
Let's just encourage them to do it. Yeah.
They're citizens.
There's an interesting phenomena. So we got 5, but you wanted 10. But
No, I said 5.
I'm just, it did.
But you can, no, here, what are your 5?
Okay, here's a
you
bonus.
do your 5.
I'm not sure if I have a 5, but I want to just talk about one.
Are you going to talk about the one I think you're going to talk about?
I think I am.
Do
Okay,
it.
but I'll tell you what the phenomena. But I'm going to set it up with this phenomena, which is that as you had all these European colonies, and with Western European countries, and now a lot of the movement of God's Spirit, drawing people to Himself, is going on in the Southern Hemisphere. Well, now some of those people are becoming immigrants to Europe, and they have become Bible-believing evangelical Christians in their home countries, and they're coming back, and they're wanting churches and sometimes planting churches, but also eager to attend churches. So I know that's definitely the case in the UK with a huge empire and people from all over, but it's very much the case in Portugal.
Yes.
And so a lot of Brazilians, because God's been moving in Brazil for a lot of years, a lot of Brazilians moving to Portugal for work, and there's all these churches. I mean, I've heard that that's a really exciting place to be for church planting right now.
Portugal.
Yes.
So we're going to add Portugal on the list. I want to add one.
Okay.
And that's in our very own country of the United States. But we had a guest, Joe Paskowicz, Pastor Joe, the Northeast New England area.
Is that the one you thought I was going to say?
That's what I thought you were going to say. Yeah, you should have said that.
Yeah.
No, Portugal's better because that's cool.
And Joe, who's pastored in New England for 30 plus years, probably closer to 40 years. Yeah. He said he sees revival happening in New England, and he said there's amazing things going on there. And I think, wow, my daughter lives in New York. But she moved out to just, outside the city in what's called Westchester County. But when you're driving out of the city to Westchester, you actually go through Connecticut. I mean, you're driving and all of a sudden, welcome to Connecticut. And then you're driving and then welcome to New York,
Welcome to New York. Sorry.
So we've been, we've been able to spend a little bit of time over the past few years in New England. And all of this to say, we went to a church one Sunday that my grandson had gone to, and he connected with the youth group. And, we went in there, and it was a church of maybe, 300 people. And I was sitting there thinking, I could be at home. This could be my own church at home. Great church, good worship, great welcoming spirit. Good Bible exposition. And I just thought, man, and, kind of a younger generation of excited people in Connecticut. I thought, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what Joe was saying.
Yeah.
Just a real, open door there. So I'll add that. That'll be 7. And so 7 places to go plant a church, but the best place to go is where God's calling you, because we need churches everywhere.
Honestly, that's the only place to go.
Yeah, that's the only place to go.
You go where God's not calling you to go, and you're going to be frustrated.
Pastor of Wisdom.
Yes. Here's a word of wisdom.
Word of wisdom, and then
the word of wisdom is, it is time to end this podcast.
Nick, future pastor of wisdom, what do you got to say? Closing words.
Yeah, I think that the fields are ripe for the harvest.
Yeah.
And I think that may God give us faith and vision to step out and see what he might do.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Pastor Brian. Nick, thanks for being back. Been a great episode.
Should we just close with just a clarification about the two Brians? I mean, do we need to talk about that?
Yeah, because we're both named Brian, so there needs to be. So I am known in our circles as Brian the Lesser, and he is known as Brian the Greater.
Yeah.
Because of age.
Thank you. Perfect conclusion.
Like my addition at the end. Perfect conclusion. All right, guys. Thanks again. Thanks for listening. The Cultivate Church Planting Podcast is part of CGN Media, a podcast network that points to Christ. Check out cgnmedia.org for more great shows and ways to support the ministry.